guys, it's Adrienne. So today I am going to show you 4 different methods of how to add beads to any crochet piece. Each method is a little bit different, and each method has a different effect. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Now, there is a 5th method, but I will talk about that one last. I'm not going to show you how to do it. It's really simple. It's totally easy. But the first 4, I'm actually going to show you how to do it. Hopefully, my videos aren't terrible. I was originally going to do these as, separate videos, but I decided why not just, put all of the methods into one video. I will leave timestamps in the description box below so that if you want to skip to a particular method, you can. I thought that would make things a little bit easier for you guys. So I guess let's get into it. Alright, so for the first method of crocheting with beads, and this can be done with any size bead, you are going to want to string on all the beads that you're going to use onto the yarn that you're going to use. For this tutorial, I am just using some just cotton with a 4mm hook, which of course it's worn away. This is a weight 4 medium yarn, 85% cotton and 15% polyester. I'm sorry about Kiwi, he's sitting up there just chirping away. So I've already strung my beads on. And I have chained 11, and then I've got a row of 10 single crochets across here that are just single crochets. And the beads that I'm using are actually just some large plastic beads that I picked up at the thrift store. But like I said, you can do this with any size yarn, any size beads. So with this first method, you're going to bring some beads up closer to where you're working. Just like that. And I'm going to push those back a little bit. Chain 1, and then turn my work. Now, the first method positions the beads on your wrong side. I guess what you would call your wrong side. It's opposite. It'll be in the back of your work. So you're going to insert your hook, bring your bead down, and then you're going to draw up a loop. And then you're going to complete the single crochet like you normally would. And it'll put a bead right there on the back. Let's see if I can't adjust this camera just a little bit so you guys can see a little better. So in the next stitch, I'm just going to put a standard single crochet because the beads are so large. And then to add another bead, let's move these out of the way. You're going to insert your hook like you normally would for a single crochet. Bring one bead down, draw up a loop, and then you're gonna yarn over and pull through 2. And you can see these beads they lay this way. Oh, sorry, I'm off camera. They lay this way. So in the next stitch, I'm just going to go ahead and single crochet. Bring another couple of beads down. So I'm going to show you that all the way across. Going to do, did I do a single crochet? Yeah, I did. Anyway, sorry. You're going to insert your hook, bring your bead down, and then finish like you would a standard single crochet. And you can do this where there's a bead in every stitch. I just chose not to. And then my last bead for this particular row let's see if I can't get this last stitch. This hook is a little bit small for this yarn, but I needed a smaller hook than usual because of the next method that I'll be showing you guys. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and you can see the beads are kind of lining up the way they're supposed to. This one's kind of turned improperly, but that's okay. And you would just single crochet, or you could add beads, either way, into the tops of these single crochet stitches just like you would normally. I'm going to go ahead and do a row of single crochet real quick. So that's what it looks like, and I just put the beads on there randomly. So like this would be good for, you know, if you were doing a bag or, you know, something like that. It's they're nice little, it's a nice little way to accent a project. I've actually done a Mobius twist shawl that I accented with seed beads. So I'm going to offset these. So instead of putting a bead here in my first stitch, I will put a single crochet, and then in the next stitch I'll put a bead. And if you do it this way, all your beads will be on the same side. That's that's what you're going for, is for the beads to be on the same side. And if you're working, a flat piece, that's really easy to do. However, if you're working a circular piece and you're wanting to add beads, you will have to use one of the other methods, which I will be showing you guys as well. It is a little bit extra, it's a little bit extra work, but the effect that you can get by adding beads to a crochet project can be very nice. And you can do it with cotton, you can do it with wool. I mean, as far as I know, you can pretty much do it with any bead, any yarn. I would suggest a more durable yarn. So, whoops. That one wasn't supposed to be there. That one should have been moved over, but that's okay. It's just a swatch. So you can see what it kind of looks like. And that's the first method. I will do the next method probably in another video, since this one is already a little bit longer. So yeah, that's how the first method on how to crochet with beads. Okay, so for method 2, I'm using the same beads as I was for method 1. Still using just cotton. It's a medium weight 4, and I'm still using a 4mm hook, which, like I said, you can't tell what size it is. The only reason I know is because of the color. And I've already, the beads are already, they're still strung on my yarn already. So for method 2, you're going to need to string your beads. And then I've already done a chain of 11 and a row of 10 single crochet. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And then to do method 2, it's a little bit harder than method 1. And you have to kind of keep the other beads out of the way. So you're going to bring your bead all the way up to your hook, but then you're going to kind of move this bead on the yarn down here. You're going to hold it with your thumb so that it's kind of out of the way. And then you're going to insert your hook into your stitch, yarn over, grab your yarn, you're going to pull it through the first loop, and then you're going to kind of tug on it and it'll tighten it up a little bit around that bead. And then you're going to finish like you would a normal single crochet. So let me show you all again. You're going to bring your bead down, pull your bead down past where your stitch is. That's where your stitch is. So you're going to pull the bead down past that stitch, and you're going to hold it with your thumb. And then you're going to insert your hook into that stitch and draw up a loop. And you're always going to draw this loop up underneath this bead. And if you tug on it just a little bit, it'll tighten it up, and you're going to finish like you would a normal single crochet. I've got to get some more beads. So bring your bead down, pull it beneath this stitch, and hold it there, just like that. Insert your hook into the next stitch and draw up a loop, but make sure to draw up this loop underneath the bead. You can let that bead go once you've got your loop drawn up, and then you finish like a regular single crochet. And if you look, these beads will lay a little bit differently than what the beads in method 1 lay. In method 1, they lay kind of horizontally. With this method, method 2, they will lay vertically along the piece that you're working. And this method you can use if you're working a round piece. This particular method is probably my favorite because it's much more versatile as far as adding beads to a crochet piece than the other methods that I know of. Come on, go through the... Oh, my yarn is splitting. Come on, guy. Let's try again. And again, this method does work with any type of yarn and any kind of bead. Maybe, what is going on? There it goes. This yarn tends to be a little splitty anyways. Oops. I keep wanting to do method 1. Sorry, guys. And of course, this is going to use a little bit of extra yarn. This particular method, I think, uses just a little bit more yarn than what method 1 does. And they're lining up quite nicely. You know, it's always extra work to add beads to a crochet piece, but in a lot of ways it can be very worth it. It adds just a little bit of, you know, flair to your piece. But it does take a little bit of extra time and effort to do this. Yep, see, I keep wanting to switch to method 1, and that's... I'm not trying to. I'm sorry, guys. I would say that the first method that I showed you guys is probably the easiest, but like I said, you can't use it for a circular piece unless you are turning your work in the middle of that. You know, if it's a continuous circular piece like amigurumi or something like that, it's not going to work at all. But this particular method, which I still keep trying to switch to 1 instead of doing 2, for me is way more versatile. And you know, it also depends on which direction you want your beads to lay. See, that can sometimes happen, and you just push that bead down over the top of your loop. So that's the first row of beads, and like I said, they lay vertically, and it looks quite nice. I think this works really well for like if you were doing a border. That would look quite nice. I like to separate, when I'm doing multiple rows of beads, I like to separate them out with a row of single crochet, you know, or I'll space them out and do one bead, one single crochet, one bead, one single crochet. But you can do them however you want. You can place the beads however you want. Another thing about this particular method is if you wanted to, you could put beads on both sides of the piece. If you're working a piece where you're turning, you can work it where there are beads on both sides, and I'll show you that right here. You just do the same thing, pull it up. If I could get these other beads out of the way, and then you'd work it like a normal crochet, or a single crochet, I'm sorry. See? And then you've actually got beads on both sides. And for some projects that looks great on. I typically don't do that because of most of the time I do wearables. Now if it was a bag, maybe the handle on a bag or something you could do that with. Where is my other stitch? There it is. So, to go ahead and start the next row of beads, you would just do the same thing that you normally would with a single crochet. You know, you chain one, turn, and then bring your bead all the way down. I need these beads to get out of the way. You're going to hold it with your thumb. And you're going to insert your hook into the first stitch, which can be hard to see, but it is there. Draw up your loop, tighten it a bit. And then you've got your first bead of your second row. Well, your second row of beads. Going to pull it down like this insert into your next stitch, draw up a loop, and tighten it up a little bit if it's necessary. You don't have to. And then finish your single crochet. And so that's what it looks like. That's method 2. And like I said, you can place these beads however you want. You know, do every other bead, do every third bead, whichever. But this particular method is probably my favorite. It works with any size beads, and you know, you can work with it in the round, whichever. Alright, so for method 3, I'm still using just cotton and a 4mm hook with these large plastic pony beads. Now, this is one of the methods that require you to use a smaller hook, like a hook that is small enough that you can fit in your bead. So I've already chained 11 and done a row of single crochet. So I'm going to chain 1 and then turn my work. So for this particular method, you're going to first insert your hook like you would a normal single crochet and draw up a loop. And then you're going to take this bead and put it on your hook, grab your yarn, and finish out that single crochet just by pulling through the bead as well as both of your single crochet loops. I prefer to put a single crochet in between each of these beads when I'm working with this method, but you don't have to. So you're going to start out with a single crochet by drawing up a loop. Before you complete it, you're going to put your next bead on and you're going to draw a loop through the bead and through both of those loops. I'll show you a third time. Put your bead on your hook, draw through that bead, and then draw through both your single crochet loops, or both loops for your single crochet. This one you always want to try. You're gonna try to crochet a little looser than what you would, just to accommodate this space for the beads. And as you can see, the beads show up on the opposite side of what you're working. Similar to the first method that I showed you guys. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And as you can see, the beads lay in a horizontal fashion. They lay quite nicely, actually. My only issue with this method is sometimes it can be difficult to find a hook that will fit through the hole of the beads that you're wanting to work with. And since I work so much with seed beads, a lot of times when I do beads on anything, did I chain 1? Yes, I did. When I usually when I add beads to a crochet piece, I tend to use seed beads, and it's always hard to find a hook that will fit through those bead holes. But you know, for your next row, well, at least I'm doing it. I'm just doing a single crochet, a row of single crochet, because, like I said, if these with this method, it will only show up. The beads only show on the one side. But it gives you a little bit of a different look than method 1 or 2 does. And, you know, if you find a hook that will work with the beads that you're wanting to use for that particular crochet piece, you know, this method does work just fine. And it cuts out, you know, the 20 minutes or so that you would spend stringing on beads before you even get to crochet, before you even start crocheting. And you're just going to draw through the bead and then draw through your 2 loops. And you know, you can do your beads however you want. You can place them however you want, just like in any of the other methods. But again, it does make for, like, for example, I would use this method and probably these beads. I wouldn't mind making a bag out of these beads using this method and even this yarn. I think it looks really nice. I hope I'm staying in frame. I do have a tendency to get out of frame when I'm doing my tutorial videos, and I am sorry about that, guys. If it ever leaves y'all with any questions, because you can't actually see the step, just drop me the question or you know, whatnot in the comment section, because I do know I have a tendency to kind of slide off of frame. And this is going to be the last bead for, whoop, I dropped one. Oh well. Last bead for this row. Chain 1 and turn. And that's what it'll look like. So that is method 3. And like I said, I like this method for, you know, bags in particular. I would not be opposed to working up a bag with this yarn and these beads together. The only thing is if you're working with smaller beads like seed beads, it's going to be difficult to find a hook that will go through the bead. So, you know, and your tension. I mean, we're crocheting with beads in general. It takes a lot of practice, but as far as controlling your tension, that takes a lot of practice as well. Um, you know, so that is method number 3. Okay, so this is method 4, and like I said, I'm using the same yarn and the same beads, same 4mm hook, and I've already got my chain 11 with a row of single crochet. That's just how I prefer to start out my swatches when I'm working with beads. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. Now for this method, it is very similar to method number 3. However, I chained 1, I turned, there's a loop on my hook. So I'm going to put my bead on, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch and draw up a loop. This method is harder. It's probably the hardest method because you have to try to get this loop through this bead, and it can be difficult. See what I mean? The bead will pinch this loop and make it difficult to draw through. Come on. I don't use this method very often because it is such a pain, but it can have a very nice effect. And so for the next stitch, I'm just going to single crochet. You can add a bead in every stitch, but like I said, I prefer to separate mine out with single crochets. And you're going to crochet a little bit looser than what you normally would. But as you can see, this is the only method that I know of that if you were going to use it for a reversible piece, that it would actually work, because the bead shows up on both sides of the piece that you're working on. So you're going to add a bead, insert your hook into the next stitch and draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through that first loop, continue to draw through the bead, and then draw through that second loop. And then I'm going to put a single crochet. And the beads lay very flat. You know, they're actually in the stitching rather than on top of it or behind it. But again, this method, because it requires you to actually put your hook into the bead, it can be difficult to find beads and hooks that will work together. And see, this would work great for, you know, straps on a necklace or straps on a dress, or, you know, on a bag. You know, it's just whether or not you have the patience to really work with the beads, because they require so much extra effort. But with this particular method, you do need to watch your tension, because if your tension gets too tight, you will not be able to get that hook through that first loop and then into your bead. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and as you can see, the beads are showing on both sides. So I think with this one, I'm going to go ahead and try to stagger my beads. Whoops, I gotta put the bead on first. So I'm going to pick up another bead, go into the next stitch, also as your piece gets a little bigger, it's easier to hold. It's always that first row that's kind of a pain. That's one of the reasons why I usually start this kind of thing with a row of single crochet. You can see they're starting to stagger a little bit. If I could keep a hold of that bead. Yeah, don't forget to put your bead on, otherwise, which I have a tendency to do sometimes, I really do. And then, so that's what it looks like, but I would just chain one and turn like you normally would. And for me, I'm just going to do a row of single crochet over the top. You could also do crochet bracelets with this method. Well, I imagine you could do crochet bracelets with any of the methods, but I feel like this is probably the best method just simply because it is reversible. I don't know. I mean, you guys could get really creative with this. If you're into amigurumi, this would be an interesting way to do like a ladybug's dots on her back. I think that would be an interesting thing to do. Because, you know, I mean, I think that would be a super cute way to do a ladybug, to add, you know, do the shell in red and then add black beads to the back using this particular method. So that is the fourth method that I know of. Now, the fifth method I'm not actually going to show you. We're going to talk about it a little bit. So I'm going to turn the camera around real quick and I will be right back. Okay, so method 5 is really very simple. It is a method that's going to put the beads on top of your crocheted work. But for many people, it's the preferred method. So I have here the swatch the swatch that we were working up for method 4, and so that's what it looks like. Now, method 5, what you would do is you would take some thread, like some actual sewing thread or some embroidery thread, and you would just sew it to the piece with maybe a matching color, or you know, just whatever color thread that you would want, and you would use it you know, to if you're working with double crochets or some really lace work, that might be a better method to go, because most of, as far as I know, the best crochet stitch to use when you're trying to add beads to a crochet piece is to use a single crochet. It's just because it is a tighter stitch. However, if you're doing something that is made of double crochets or trebles or shell stitching, anything like that, you might want to look at possibly hand sewing your beads on with thread and needle. I would say if you would definitely want to do that if you were using like a weight 1 type of yarn or crochet thread. I would definitely hand sew the beads on rather than try to crochet them into the piece, just because when you're crocheting with the beads, you're going to want to use a little bit of a more durable yarn. For example, I used cotton here, but if you're using, you know, like a weight 1 wool yarn, that might not hold up to crocheting with beads. Some of these, you know, I say that you should try to crochet loosely, but when you're working with beads, that can be difficult. There's, at least I know for me, I have a natural tendency to want to tighten the stitches around the beads. And if you're using, say, a weight 1 wool yarn, that might not hold up over time. Now, a weight 1 cotton yarn might. So it is definitely something that you have to play around with. I also will say that learning how to do this, how to add beads as an accent, it takes a lot of tension practice. I've been doing it for a long time. I don't do it as often as I used to, but you have to have a lot of tension control. Otherwise, it's just not going to turn out the way that you want it to. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that. If you guys enjoyed the tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. I know it's probably long. I haven't actually, I haven't edited anything yet, so I don't know for sure how long this video is, but I imagine it's going to be pretty long considering there is 5 different methods that I discussed, and 4 that I showed you. So anyways, I will see you guys in my next video. And, if you guys use any of these methods, or you have used them, please let me know in the comments. That would be awesome. If you've got pictures of something that you've done where you've crocheted with beads, send them to my email. I would love to see them. So yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys in my next video.